Welcome, lovely one, to the Meant for More podcast. My name's Lisa Clifford, and I am building the world's most empowering Meant for More movement, leading millions of heart-led purpose seekers from feeling insignificant to invincible. So I truly hope you enjoy this next episode. I'm so excited to welcome Janey Lee Grace to the Meant for More podcast. This has been a wish fulfilled for me. Janey has gone from the pop culture, from supporting Wham, Kim Wilde, Boy George, to her own top 10 hit in 1991 with Cola Boy, to co-presenting with Steve Wright in the afternoon on BBC Radio 2, to now coaching and mentoring and training in the wellbeing world. And she's the founder of the Sober Club. She's a TEDx speaker and a best-selling author. So there is so much for us to chat about in the next hour coming up. Welcome, Janey. Thank you for making a little dream of mine come true. Because unbeknown to you, I've been, you've had a special place in my heart for years. I would love listening to your part on the Steve Wright in the afternoon show. There was just something about that dynamic. There was somebody else that used to co-present as well, wasn't there?
Tim and I, you mean?
Tim, that's it. Oh, just that dynamic was just gold. So I've been a little bit of a stalker for all that time. And then I am fascinated by what I will call a movement that you've created, a sober positivity movement that I don't know if we'll talk about. We maybe will. But I want to start off by asking you, how are you and what's happening in your life?
Yeah, I'm great. There's a lot going on, ever such a lot going on. I'm still doing some radio, mostly local radio stuff, and I have a podcast, and I do a whole bunch of things with my voice, I suppose you'd say. But I also run the Sober Club, which is a wellbeing community. And I absolutely love doing that. And I train people to be sober coaches as well. So, and that, I love it because it brings in all of my kind of holistic living stuff. So if you've listened to Steve's show, I'm sure you probably know that I've written several books on holistic living, and, over the years, that's kind of been the basis of everything I've done, really, has been that holistic living piece.
And would you say that you've worked purposely to know your purpose? Because it feels like it runs through you, but is it something that you actively worked on? And what would you say it is in a nutshell?
It's a good question. I think what happened for me was I was working in radio and TV and as a singer, so I was doing all the kind of media stuff, and I knew that I loved the whole communication, if you like. But then it wasn't until I got pregnant with my first child, and I had my kids really late. So I got pregnant with my first son, and I wasn't planning to be pregnant. I wasn't planning to have any kids. It's quite hilarious now when you look back. I've got 4, but I really wasn't intending to have any. I was just a complete career girl, total rock and roller, not the slightest bit interested in having kids. And then when I found out I was pregnant, and that was interesting because they thought he was an ovarian cyst. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, it was almost like everything flipped 360. And suddenly I desperately wanted this baby. And so in that moment, it was as if I just literally went 360 and decided in that moment, right, I want to do absolutely everything holistically. And I'd already been interested in good mindset, good nutrition, but I hadn't made much of it, if you know what I mean. But then suddenly, the second I found out I was pregnant, I was absolutely determined and on a mission. And that's when it started, really. So I did do everything holistically. I had a water birth and really became fascinated and passionate about everything to do with reducing chemical load and everything else. So that's where it started, and then sort of gradually built up. And then 2006, the year that I had my 4th baby, it's a bit like having two babies, because that's when my first book came out that year. And that
Oh,
came about purely because of Steve's show, because I used to talk about my life on Steve's show. I used to talk about, good nutrition and holistic living and eco balls for doing your washing. And the guys would take the mick and fade me out. Oh, there she goes, cosmic bird. They kind of fade me out. But I actually was getting loads of emails and calls from people saying, listen, I know those guys sort of make fun of you, but I really am genuinely interested if I can get a natural deodorant, and I'm genuinely interested in X and Y. And so I was kind of, answering a lot of personal emails. And then a publisher came to me and said, have you thought about writing a book about this? Because you must be getting contacted by people. And I just said, no, I had never considered it, because I don't think I'm a writer. And she said, well, let's find out, So that publisher really kickstarted that whole career 20 years ago. I wrote my first book. And suddenly that was it. I absolutely knew my purpose. It was, to try and inspire and encourage as many people as possible to live their best life in the most holistic way,
how incredible. Don't you think that life is fascinating? The way that it gives us little nudges and bumps. I mean, imagine if you hadn't have had your first son.
Oh God, yeah, I know. Well, it's funny, because my when I was, doing the music biz stuff, I was a singer for many years. Have you read my memoir? It's all documented in that. If you've not read it, you'll love that.
Right, I'm going to
So
get
in
it.
that book, which
Wham
just
to
came out,
woo.
From Wham to Woo, A Life on the Mic. And when I wrote that, I wrote the section in there about when I was singing, and I had a hit in 91, and I was touring, and I will always remember one conversation on the plane that I had with my music manager. And we were having a chat, and she said, oh, have you thought about starting a family and all of this? I was with the wrong guy at the time. And so I said, absolutely not, no way. And she said, well, if you were, when you were the right person. I said, there's not one hope in hell. I said, I don't have a biological clock. I've heard women talking about it. I don't have it. I really don't. And I wouldn't know. I just would not know where to start. Wouldn't know what to do.
How old were you when you were having that conversation?
I was about 28, something like that. 28, 29. So easily ready to be, having those thoughts. But yeah, I was absolutely adamant. And because my own upbringing wasn't great, I had no modeling for mothering in any way. So, I kind of said, no, I think I probably thought, I'm not sure I would have voiced it, but I think probably at some level what was going on was I knew that I was far from sorted myself, and I kind of didn't want to pass that on, So, and I always remember my manager saying to me, well, I think you might regret that one day. I always remember that conversation. I said, I absolutely won't. And it's so funny, because of course then when I get pregnant with the first one, she reminds me, and then I have 3 more.
But it's funny, isn't it, that how I wonder, I'm going to say a statement, and I don't know if it's true because it's just coming to my mind, but you can't avoid what life has in store for you and how it drops in your purpose. I'm all about purpose.
Yeah,
well,
I think if you're open to it, yes. I think you can avoid it if you block it off, and I do know some people who have, but I think, yes, if you are open and you set your intentions, I think it's really interesting. Yeah.
And then the Sober Club, that is an amazing, would you call it a movement? I certainly would.
Well, there is a sober movement going on for sure, and I hope my little podcast and community, is part of it. I mean, the Sober Club is 6 years old in a couple of weeks, and that time has really completely flown by, because it's it really is a labour of love. But it's amazing because we have people join our community who are literally day one, and they're kind of thinking about quitting alcohol, and then we've got people who've been sober for 10 years, and they're just all about the well-being, because obviously I bring in lots of experts and we do lots of well-being stuff. But I think within the work that I do with my podcast and with the coaching that I do, my main mission and purpose, again, if you like, is to encourage people to recognize that they don't have to wait till they get to rock bottom, that life is better without. So I don't tend to work with people who are, clinically dependent and needing rehab. That's not what I do. I work with people who are the way I was, which is perfectly, in inverted commas, fine, functioning just fine, rocking up to work every day, never taking a day off work, never getting never driving under influence, never, none of the really nasty stuff, thank God.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware that there, but for the grace of God go I, by the way.
Absolutely.
But it's that spectrum, and we now use the term grey area drinkers or middle lane drinkers. It's people who are somewhere on that spectrum. They're not at rock bottom yet, but there's very little in society that encourages them to step off the booze elevator until they think they're at rock bottom. Whereas I want to do it the other way around. I want people to kind of look at sobriety and go, oh my God, I've got a choice. I can do that. I can quit alcohol. I can get off that booze elevator and life will be better in so many ways. And not enough people talk about that, because in our society, we're kind of encouraged to believe that you've just got the two types of drinkers. You've got those people at rock bottom who need clinical help. That certainly wasn't me. I wouldn't identify there at all. And then you've got everyone else, and everybody else is just fine, thank you. They're happy social drinkers. It's all good. It's not true. It's a whole spectrum. It's, many shades of grey. I say in my TED talk, 50 shades of grey and none of them sexy. It's a whole spectrum. But one thing's for sure, for anyone who's kind of thinks to themselves, well, I always say I'm not up for prohibition. I'm not telling people to stop drinking. All I would say is ask yourself, could my life be better physically and emotionally without alcohol? For some people, they'll go, no, I'm good. I have a sherry at Christmas. I'm happy. Fine. But there are lots of people, I reckon, who, if you ask them that and they answer honestly, they'll go, hell yeah. Yeah, it would be better. I'd have a lot more energy. I'd have more money. I'd have more time. I wouldn't say the things I don't want to say, and on and on. So that's the mission, really, is to share that message that life is better without.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you would like to be involved in the Meant for More movement, then please drop me a line at lisa@lisaclifford.co.uk. Whether that's you're interested in being on the podcast, taking part in any of the trainings, or would just love to know how you can help empower others, then let's have a conversation. Thank you for listening, and we'll connect again very soon. And I completely hear everything from
yeah, you're a sober hero, aren't you?
I am, to myself. Yeah, I'm a little hero to myself. Yeah. And I think, I go right back to the bit where you say about not having a role model from being a kid. I totally hear that, and not wanting children for that reason. And but then hearing that you got one, and how that kind of shaped life, and then the not drinking. I saw on your TEDx, which is, can't remember it word for word, but you said something along the lines of, drinking is the only thing where people say,
the only drug we have to justify not taking. Yeah,
absolutely. Literally. And then people assuming that, oh right, well, I need to know more about that. What's the story there? And like, well, there isn't. There is, but there isn't one that. But for you, what was your catalyst to be sober curious? And
I've been sort of up and down with it for years. The interesting thing for me is that I was doing this work around holistic living, you see, and I had a #1 Amazon best-selling book, Imperfectly Natural Woman. I had a website. I was doing talks everywhere. I was kind of queen of holistic living, literally. And yet I was stepping around this huge elephant in the room that was alcohol. And for me, I was completely in denial. That piece didn't count. That was my little treat. I was fully bought into what I now know is absolute BS. All of that absolute BS about, oh, well, a glass of red wine is good for the heart. I took that to mean a bottle of Sauvignon.
Was even better.
By the way, I don't believe a glass of red wine is good for the heart. That's BS too.
Just for
But
the
anyway,
record.
at the time,
Yeah.
I was all sucked into this nonsense. And so I was kind of stepping around this elephant in the room. But of course, every now and then, my conscience would have a little word and say, well, what are you doing? You know, and so there were many times over those years that I thought, oh, well, I'll just stop. You know, I mean, I'm pretty strong at doing what I choose to do, you know, relatively successful. Surely I can just stop drinking, for God's sake. And then, of course, I found it wasn't as easy as I'd thought, that I was, you know, fully in the trap, which came as a bit of a shock to me. And what was interesting was over the years, because of the work I did, I would often get therapeutic treatments and energy healing and all kinds of stuff. You know, I was very lucky. I got to review lots of stuff, so I would write about it. And if I felt comfortable with the therapist, I'd sometimes say at the end of the session, you know, actually, I'm a little bit worried about my drinking, you know, and in every case, and this went on for years, in every case, they'd just go, oh, well, you know, it's just normal. I mean, I drink every night too, and just have the odd alcohol-free day. I've had a quid for every time someone has said, have an alcohol-free day. Like I'd not thought of that, you know.
Yeah.
And so that kept me stuck again. And then, and sometimes I'd stop for a little while, and then I'd go back because there was nothing keeping me focused on life being better. I was just gritting my teeth for dry January or whatever. So that went on for ages. I stopped through all the pregnancies, you know, interesting, when I really knew it was non-negotiable. And then I think one of the latter things that happened was I remember going to a GP for a vitamin D test. And it was in the days when GPs had more than about 2.5 seconds. So as you went out the door, they used to call it the doorknob moment. I got to the door and I said, actually, also, I'm quite worried about the amount of alcohol I'm putting down every day. And then she said, well, how much are you drinking? Well, obviously I lied, and they know you lie. Everyone lies and they know you lie. So I lied and said, I don't know, you know, a couple of glasses of wine, maybe 3. And she knows to double it, you know, and then she sort of goes, well, you know, you look fine. I mean, I'm the same. She's exactly the therapist. I like the therapist. I'm the same, you know, just have an alcohol-free day, make sure you have a glass of water in between. And, you know, we all need it, don't we? I mean, we're so stressed. So I went out there thinking, oh, thank God.
Abnormal.
I'm completely normal. She's the same. She's, you know, thank God. And that kept me stuck for another 5 years. And then in what was the catalyst, the change came when I'd had a good few months where I really was starting to notice it. It was getting to the point where I couldn't really deny it anymore, because I was waking up about 3 a.m. every day, you know, liver repair time, waking up about 3 a.m. and I would wake up and a voice would literally say to me, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're meant to be this queen of holistic living. You're meant to care about your health and well-being. You're telling other people to reduce their what are you doing? And I'd kind of listen to this voice, and then I'd make a little deal with God, you know, and I'd say, well, you know, I'm going to stop. And as long as I don't have a hangover today, I won't have a drink again. And then God would keep his side of the bargain, and I wouldn't have a hangover. Such was my tolerance. And then by 6 o'clock the next night, the wine witch would be in the ear again. They're, oh, you know, you've had a really busy day. You deserve a Sauvignon Blanc, you know. And it would all carry on. But it was starting to get that it was every night.
Yeah.
So I was really starting to notice it. But I didn't know what to do, because I didn't know who I could tell this to. Clearly, the GP didn't get it.
We've been telling everyone. What was next?
I was telling everyone who I thought could help me.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell friends or anyone else, because they all seemed to just be, I'm sure they were drinking as much as I was.
Well, you might even have looked tame.
Of course, I now realise they probably weren't fine either. But I didn't know that. And it's not anything that you talk about. And so life just kind of rolled on, and I was feeling more and more kind of stressed and concerned about everything. I was stressed about getting older. I was terrified of getting older, actually. I felt as though everything was kind of going south, you know, not like anything about it. So I was not in a great place. And then just before Christmas 2017, the producer on Steve Wright's show said, oh, there's a couple of books here that you need to have a look at over Christmas because the authors are coming in first day of January. Now, if you work in radio or TV and you're going to be interviewing authors, you're lucky if you get the book the night before. If you're very lucky, you might just get it on the day. It just doesn't happen. This was most unusual, that I was given a book with 2 whole weeks to read it. And I looked at the book and it was Claire Pooley's The Sober Diaries. And I looked at that title and I thought, this is going to be it. I knew in that instant, it's going to be it. So much so that I didn't even start reading it till after Christmas because I didn't want to ruin my bloody Christmas. So I literally had my Christmas, drank as much as possible, felt like hell, and started her book the next day, pretty much the next day. And it was the very first time that I'd read about someone just like me, not someone at rock bottom, someone just like me, had a family, work, busy life, normal mum, not at rock bottom, but drinking every day, knew it needed to stop. And she stopped and life was better. And it was the first time I'd ever read anything like that. And so I drove to the New Year's Eve party that we were going to. I poured myself some alcohol-free drinks so nobody noticed, didn't tell anyone. Decided I would do dry January, or at least just to meet Claire when she came in. And that was it. I never looked back. So that was the kind of catalyst for me. And the thing that made the difference, I now know, is that rather than focusing as I had before on, oh my God, I'm going to grit my teeth and get through this, I focused on everything I was going to be gaining. So I now have I'm a real bully, and I won't let anyone use the phrase giving up. You're not allowed to say giving up. Yeah. Because there's nothing to give up. There's everything to gain. So, that was the start of it. And, I think sometimes when you're ready, it does just take something to flick the switch, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and I think sometimes people think they need a launch, a build up to it.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It can be just, it can be just a moment where, in the firewalking world, my mentor talks about that there are times in life where life gives you a square centimetre chance opportunity. And if you have the courage to grab it, your life can be transformed in an instant. And it's like when you saw that book, you went,
yeah, that's it. I know.
And I wonder how much of it was your intention that you fueled into the book, that you're now when you set an intention, you can even set the intention when you're decorating. But I do believe that we can choose what creates our medicine. But it was a bit like when you saw that book, you knew the power it had for you, because I think you decided, and therefore you didn't read it before.
Exactly. No, exactly that. And and Claire became a friend, and I've since interviewed her loads of times and stuff. So and obviously I've written my own book on sobriety, which my feeling is, if it helps one person the way hers helped mine, I'll be very happy.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you when you say it's not what you're giving up, it's everything to gain.
Absolutely.
And when I didn't know I was stopping drinking, and I wasn't even pregnant, I decided, for me, I was doing my first ever speaking engagement, and it was in 2008, and I'd always wanted to be a speaker. And I thought, I don't feel confident enough. And I thought, well, what can I do for myself that'll make me feel confident? I thought, well, you need to lose a stone. You know how, losing a stone, suddenly confidence appears from somewhere not. But in the process of losing the stone in a month, I did my own detox. And in the detoxing included alcohol, along with salt and sugar and caffeine and potatoes and wheat and dairy. So alcohol was one of about 7 things I was detoxing from, and I accidentally never drank again. And
fabulous.
For me, I would say, just like you've described, not rock bottom, because I've seen what that looks like. Not, I did end up cancelling things, like I'd cancel friends, and I would sabotage something terrible with alcohol. And so when I stopped drinking, I was liberated.
Yeah,
And I would
exactly.
always see it as, for right now, I don't want to drink. Now, right now, I don't miss it. And every day was, what does Lisa want and need today? Well, I don't miss it. I don't want it. And I'm an all or nothing person, Janey. I either get smashed or sober. I either like get one cashmere cardigan or 10. You know, there's no half measure. So it worked in my favor. And I thought, I've been so unbelievably blessed to find this easy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to test it by having one drink and
No,
then it not be.
sometimes, and that's an interesting point because, obviously I get into a lot of conversations with clients or potential clients or sober club members around this whole idea of the fact that when people rock up for coaching or join the sober club, what they say they want is to reduce their drinking. They say, I just want to drink, in inverted commas, normally. I want to be able to have one drink, but not. And I'm sure I would have said that back then if you'd asked me, what is it you want then? Well, I want to not feel terrible.
Yeah.
I now see it completely differently, and I know this doesn't come to people instantly, but now I recognise that it's utterly bizarre to even have a sort of hankering after one drink, because alcohol is, let's not sugarcoat it, the most harmful drug.
Yeah.
It is, when you take into account harm to the economy, the health system, everything. It just so happens it's legal. But I don't know if it would be if it came on the market now. I don't know. But if you think of it as the most harmful drug, isn't there a statistic of something like, isn't it a ridiculous number of like 80% of crimes are alcohol related? I mean, it's crazy. It's literally crazy. Not to mention the the cost to the health service and so much illness, linked to alcohol. But so in the light of that, if you were to just flip the word just for a second to heroin, I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's laughable. It's like, if only I could just have a little bit of heroin and then feel good. I could, I want to be a normal heroin user. I mean, it's crazy. We've literally all just been brainwashed into thinking that this drug that makes a tremendous amount of money for the drug companies, that this drug is needed by us. And actually the reality is the emperor's not wearing any clothes. It doesn't actually do anything beneficial for, unless you need to clean a wound and then, knock yourself out. But aside from cleaning a wound, it has zero benefits, zero.
No.
And I used to know that stuff. I really didn't. I'm not being judgmental because I genuinely did not know that stuff. I genuinely believed that I was looking after I used to think of it as my little treat, my self-care, and I was a relatively bright person, but the marketing around this and the way where our unconscious mind is ingrained with these beliefs, it's really deeply rooted in us. Well, why would it not be? For hundreds of years, it's the thing we do. It's the rite of passage, isn't it? You can't have a Mother's Day with that picture of a bloody Prosecco glass. You can't buy a card for your 25-year-old son with that pint of beer on the front.
Exactly. And also, like, it's used for celebration. Let's all toast. It's used to celebrate things. It's been given more purposes than it should have. And then there's the purposes that we give it, like, I'll just have a drink now and this marks my time, or I deserve it. And so I remember when I stopped, but I was so used to picking a glass up. In fact, I would keep the bottle of wine near me because it saved me getting up and going into the kitchen all the time. So I would drink it faster. And then I wouldn't put the glass on the floor because I have 2 golden retrievers. So then I naturally drank it faster. Then when I stopped, I thought, I still need something in my hand. And so, I would put sparkling water in. But it wasn't until I had stopped that I realised how much freedom I had and how much restriction I had because of these rules I put around alcohol. So if a friend invited me over for dinner, I'd think, well, if I drive, I've got to stay over. Or it's a fortune in a taxi home, and I've got to get, and then so I think, it never entered my mind not to drink.
No, exactly. I mean, the amount of time we waste planning to drink, actually drinking and recovering from drinking, you free up so much time. It's incredible.
What's
Really is.
been I was going to say, I bet there's loads, but the biggest gift that being sober has given you, I guess it has a knock-on effect on all the other gifts, but what's been your
Yeah.
biggest gift?
It's a difficult question because it is. I would be here forever if I listed every benefit. But I think perhaps the most surprising one that I was not expecting is that through being sober, I was able to become authentic and actually start to like myself. And the irony there is, I'd been working as a Hay House author for years and then a presenter on Hay House Radio. I'd interviewed, you name a kind of guru, and I've probably interviewed them, everyone from Louise Hay to Wayne Dyer, everyone. So there was kind of nothing really that I didn't know about spirituality, self-love, meditation, all of those things. I was thoroughly steeped in that world. And yet, if you'd kind of taken me aside and said, tell me about your what it feels like for you personally and your personal practice, I've just said, don't be ridiculous. It's not for me. I'll tell you all you need to know, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
Because I could not sit in meditation for 2 seconds. Because a voice would say, go and put the washing on this because this does not feel very authentic. And I now realize it's because I was putting toxic liquid in my head every single goddamn day. I could not be authentic. So I think for me, it was the incredible surprise of being able to actually start to like myself. And I think lots of people find that. And it is quite a surprise. You don't even recognize the feeling when you start to feel a sense of contentment. I was searching for it for years and years. I searched for it everywhere, in everything.
Yeah.
And eventually, I suppose, if you'd asked me, I remember having a conversation with David Hamilton, Dr. David Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I remember actually saying to him, I think some people just don't have that ability to love themselves. I must just have had so much trauma that it's not possible for me to love myself. I now realize that it's because of what I was doing to myself.
Oh, that's an absolute epiphany for me, actually, you saying that. Because when I didn't love myself, in fact, I would hide. I would act like somebody else rather than myself. And I'm thinking, when did I start to like myself? And peace, the other word that just came to me as you were speaking was the peace that is a necessity rather than something to be fearful of. I think I used to be fearful of calmness and peace. Having grown up with an alcoholic mum and then an alcoholic stepmom, my stepsister, my sister, my granddad, alcohol was like, I only knew the model of being through the lens of alcoholics and being in that very frequency, that very, and so what I noticed
very
that
chaotic, isn't it?
Really chaotic, and my nervous system was more familiar with chaos and would try and recreate it, and with alcohol and sabotage. But what was created with the letting it go and just being was, there was, exactly as you've just said, space for me to be revealed, and then the comfort and the need for peace and calmness.
I mean, it's interesting. A lot of people find, I've had a lot of clients who've said to me, I've realized that actually I'm quite an introverted person. I'm not the extroverted party girl I thought I was. I'm quite introverted and I'm highly sensitive. It's kind of like a light comes on. You go, oh, you know what? It's okay for me to say, no, I actually don't want to go to that party. You go. I don't want to go. I'm good. And not feel guilt with that, I think it's, sorry, carry on.
Were the things that you, right, this is coming from projection. So I'm going to stop dressing it up. What I did really up until recently, that would be a massive tip that I would give to somebody else, or that I wish I'd given to myself 17 years ago, was people would ask me out and say, oh, do you want to join us? And I say, oh yeah, I'll come along, but I don't drink. But of course I still drink.
Yeah,
Water,
exactly. Just don't drink
orange
toxic
juice,
stuff.
or
Yeah.
and there wasn't non-alcoholic lager 17, well, there might have been, but I didn't know it 17 years ago. But I ended up removing myself accidentally from social circles because I would say, oh yeah, I'll come, but I don't drink. Were there any things like that that you did at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously now I work as a coach and I train coaches, so I kind of
clean.
have all the top tips of what we should do, as it were. But interestingly, I learned the hard way, because when I quit, and I don't recommend this at all, but when I quit, because I sort of wasn't planning to, I just read that book and that was it. I didn't tell anyone, apart from Claire. I told Claire. I always say to people, absolutely tell one person.
Yeah.
But I told Claire, and Claire's the only person I told. And I didn't tell anyone else. And the reason I didn't tell anyone else is shame. It's bizarre, really, because I wasn't ashamed when I was drinking all the goddamn time, which perhaps I should have been. I felt such a sense of shame. It was such a new feeling. It was so raw. I had no idea who I was. I was hugely emotional. It was too big to talk about. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't start telling anyone. Well, they wouldn't have known what to do with it anyway. And my husband, my family would have just said, "Oh, you're not that bad. Don't worry. Just don't drink today, and we'll have one tomorrow when we got." That's what you can't have when you're quitting. You can't have that. That's why I now recommend to people, don't get into deep conversation with those closest to you. Tell them you're doing a health project for your health and well-being, which you are, by the way. And as part of that, you're not drinking. So you'd love their support. End of, no more questions. And if they ask any more questions, just say, ask me 6 months. All good. By the way, I'll have an alcohol-free beer. Thank you very much. So don't get involved. But what I did was I kind of panicked. I went into fear mode and said nothing. But I still had a load of stuff to do. I still had parties to go to and awards ceremonies and God knows what. So I couldn't blow out of them. So I just went along to them all, gritted my teeth, and wherever there was alcohol-free drinks, I had them. But often there wasn't. And, I always remember going to one function when I'd only been sober for about a week. And I think it was a Radio 2 thing. And all that was available was white wine, red wine. There wasn't even the usual crappy warm orange juice for the non-drinkers. I mean, it was an absolute disgrace. And I think I went and paid separately for a crappy elderflower cordial. And I realized just how boring drunk people are. Sober people are, I know sober anagram of bores, but actually the opposite is true. They're the boring ones. And they've had a couple of drinks. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't think I'm going to make this. And I was giving out an award at something like midnight. Oh my God, it was agony. It was exhausting. So I learned really quickly, prep ahead, right? I'm a very big believer in choosing alcohol-free drinks. They don't have to be, in inverted commas, replacements. It's up to you, but there happens to be an amazing choice of everything, whether it's, artisan tonic waters or kombucha or Jimba, if you like fiery ginger, or alcohol-free fizz or whatever, So now I have a ritual. I have a mantra, which is keep the ritual, change the ingredients. The reality is, if you're going out, you do want to have a glass. Why a glass has to be named by alcohol? I don't know. I still happen to like a wine glass. I just don't put wine in it. Or if I do, it's alcohol-free, right? So I now prep ahead. I will let a venue know that it's a dietary requirement, right? They're going to be planning for you to, I think as part of the budgeting, if you're going to a function, they'll budget for half a bottle of wine per person, something like that, isn't it? So I put as a dietary requirement, just as if I were vegan or gluten-free, my dietary requirement is that I want grown-up alcohol-free drinks. Don't give me a Coke or a lemonade or an orange juice. I'm not 12. I want a good alcohol-free grown-up drink. And if they don't have it, I take my own. And then we have the argument about corkage for a soft drink, because it's a soft drink, right? So they can't charge 20 quid to open your bottle of alcohol-free naughty or whatever it is. So I got much better at it as time went on. But the point I'm trying to make is, in the early days, I did it all wrong. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't really do my prep. I just kind of rocked up and felt a little bit miserable and a little bit not connected. But I'm kind of glad now that I had to go through that, because it's helped me realize that it is all perfectly possible. And if you prep ahead, it's very possible. So I always say to people, it's up to you when you're early days. If you don't want to go somewhere, then you know what? Wait for it. No is a complete sentence.
Absolutely.
Don't go.
Absolutely.
End of. But if you do want to go, prep ahead. Tell people you're not drinking. Don't give them. You don't have to give them a reason. You just, oh, by the way, and the way I always say to people, sometimes you can say, oh, by the way, I'm not drinking. I've got an early start tomorrow. I'm driving or whatever. Or you can just say, I'm not drinking at the moment. Makes me feel so much less anxious. But then you add one thing on. You add on, you don't have to worry about me because I've got a fabulous alcohol-free beer that I'll bring with me.
Yeah.
That's the bit that makes all the difference. Because other people, when they're drinking, do this thing of, oh, poor you. You've had to have dental work. You can't drink. Oh, how awful. You know, it's such BS. So it tends to shut them up if you just have the clear statement and that's the end of it. And then when people start to pressurize you, change the subject.
Absolutely. And I guess you can say, this is what I am drinking. So what I'm drinking at the moment is this.
Exactly. So it's, yes, thank you. I'd love a drink. I'll have an alcohol-free, whatever it is, or I'll have a sparkling water. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have your zero beer. That's what I asked for. Zero lager. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh, yes. And I think being clear about the kind of support that works for you, you know, where some people, I remember, I can have alcohol around me because I think the way that I did it was accidental, and I thought, oh, I'm going to run with this. I'm not missing it, so I'm going to keep doing it for as long. And I know I am a lucky girl, but I'm never tempted when alcohol's around me. But I remember once my friend had said, oh, if my husband helps you with this, as in putting some blinds up, maybe you can repay me, as in her, with a bottle of champagne. So I did. And she poured a glass and she left it in front of me. And she went, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have left that there. Oh, my God, I'm so sorry. And I went, why? She went, so you won't be tempted. I said, I can manage myself. You're not going to interfere with my own sense of control. But what I find that doesn't work for me is people policing me. And I think it's everybody's dread, isn't it? That people think that, oh, if I'm to support my friend who's not drinking, that I've got to watch them all the time. And I think that's the last thing, certainly that I wanted, that anybody else wants.
That's why I always say you don't really get into much conversation. If you simply said, if you just sort of, you know, let's imagine you're perimenopausal or menopausal or something, and you say to, you know, friends or your husband, oh, I'm doing a health thing that's going to help with the menopause at the moment. So I mean, just so you know, I'm eating certain foods, I'm taking some supplements, I'm doing some mindfulness stuff. I might be out at yoga on Friday. Oh, and by the way, obviously I'm not drinking on account of, you know, it's a health thing. So the best way you can support me is, you know, just notice that I'm doing those things and just don't offer me any alcohol, because obviously, you know, I'm not drinking at the moment. Usually if you say it like that, there's no more follow through questions. I mean, literally. And it happens to be true. So then as soon as there is oh dear, you know, I better not put them in front of you. It's like, well, I'm doing what I need to do for me. What's the problem? And literally change the subject. If you engage with people who are drinking when you're very early days, you tend to tie yourself up in knots, because you aren't sort of far enough down the line in many cases to have everything sorted out emotionally. It's very difficult in the early weeks for a lot of people. They don't really know who they are.
Yeah.
Because they haven't found out yet. And it's, you know, I call it sort of stepping into your sober shoes, and they don't quite fit at the beginning. The first time you go out to a social event, I mean, I remember going to a lunch where I would have typically have been, you know, the one on the table ordering the fourth bottle and the fifth bottle. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, it was as if I was observing myself, thinking, I don't know who this person is. What does she say now? What does she do? Is everyone else looking at? It was so weird, so weird. You get used to it. You get used to it because you settle into who you really are.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find that you're not the person you thought you were, but you sure as hell like yourself more. I've never met
Yeah.
anyone who prefers themselves drunk. That's for
No.
sure.
What did you find surprisingly easy from your experience that you didn't expect it to be
Um,
easy?
I mean, I didn't get support at the beginning. So uh, I mean, the first few weeks were hard for me because I was trying to, become a new person, a different person.
Mm,
Um, but I got on with everything. I mean, you could say I found it easy. I got on with everything. I didn't cancel a single thing. I did
yeah.
everything I would normally do, and that, back then it was quite a lot. I was full time on radio too, and doing loads of stuff. So I did everything I would normally do. Nothing changed, so you could say it was easy. Um, Keeping it secret from everyone else was easy, actually, because I had alcohol-free drinks, and I just used to pour my husband a glass of something, and I would pour myself a glass of something else. Um, Fine. I mean, the alcohol-free drinks made a huge difference for me because it literally was that keeping the ritual thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you could say I found it easy. I now realize I could have made it so much easier for myself if I'd done all the pieces I now encourage people to do, like made sure my nutrition was good. Because even though I was steeped in holistic living, I kind of forgot everything I knew. It was bizarre, actually. But I now realize the importance of good nutrition, the right supplements, getting your mindset right, and absolutely the importance of connection with like-minded people who've been there, done it, got the t-shirt.
Mm.
It's absolutely key. That's why when people do this and they're supported through the Sober Club, it really can be easy, because you don't have to go to your partner and go, you know what, I've had the worst day on God's sodding earth and all I want to do is drink. Because when you do that to your partner, they typically go, oh, sweetheart, you've done ever so well. You can just have one. And they don't mean any harm. So you really can't do that. You have to make the
No.
decision, right, I'm going to be connected with a group of people. I can write that message on a group and I will get 20 people immediately say to me, sweetheart, come on, think about X and Y, do this, play the tape forward, I thought about that, and you're love bombed instantly.
Yeah.
And it gets you through it.
Well, there's something that you said, and I don't know if we press record or not at the time, but you don't see it as giving up anything.
No.
So when you choose not to have that drink, you're not giving up the drink, you're gaining.
Yeah, I really won't let anyone say I'm giving up alcohol or I'm
Yeah.
giving up for it. Your unconscious mind is listening. And if you end up feeling that you're making a sacrifice and you're feeling deprived, it will constantly be thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Actually, no, it really wouldn't be nice. You're not giving up anything. You're quitting, you're stopping taking in toxic liquid that is incredibly harmful. And then you're open to all the gains.
Well, it's like having yourself back. You're open
Exactly.
to nourishing Janey, to nourishing who you are. That the not having it is because when you think about it, having alcohol was like a real suppressant that converted into depressant,
Totally.
doesn't it?
Depressing.
And
It
it,
is. I mean, the way I've seen people change has been really incredible.
mm,
Um, with it, both clients and some people in the Sober Club, they've just literally turned into different people. They've just blossomed.
yeah,
So many of them say to me, I just can't believe myself. I can't. I've just signed up for a MA in creative writing. One woman said, I never would have done anything like that. Somebody else went and started a charity. Somebody else wrote a book. Several of the coaches who've trained with me have said to me, I can't believe that I've done this training. It's just little me. And I just used to have and I had no sort of intentions or dreams or goals. I just can't believe the person I've become, It's really incredible how you can actually take back control of who you really are and what you want. And being sober makes you brave. That's a really
yeah.
cool thing.
Yeah, it's a bit like the removing the alcohol allows you to have the gift of yourself. I mean, that
Exactly that.
I think, when I listen to what you've said and you know, I've been in personal development for 21 years,
Yeah.
not as long as you, but having a light bulb moment in a conversation where I thought I've been in the sober world for ages.
Yeah.
And like, to me, and I said, I'm my own little hero. I don't expect anybody else to be impressed, but I am with me. And the light bulb moment for me was that when the alcohol stopped, self-love and
Exactly.
self-worth
Exactly.
had
You come in.
space to blossom.
Yeah.
And I think, oh yeah, that was when I stopped pretending to be like other people
Yeah.
and accepted who I am with all my flaws and
Yeah.
didn't try to be
Exactly.
perfect.
No,
It was
exactly. It
like
makes you
permission to,
authentic.
yeah, permission to be yourself. I mean, and that takes courage. In the same way, when you kept saying to people, just one thing, I think I might be drinking too much. That takes courage.
Mm.
Massive amounts of courage to say.
Well, it does. And that's why the response needs to change. You see, even now looking back, I'm not judgmental of those therapists or even GPs, really. They didn't know any different. They were probably drinking themselves and they didn't know anything different. They didn't know what to do with me because I didn't fit the camp of, oh, you need to go to rehab, I'll refer you. So they didn't know what to do with me. Now, what I want to do is I want to raise more awareness so that if that ever happens again, all they have to say is, well done you for noticing that about yourself. And I hear that there are now loads of resources. Check out the Sober Club or X and Y. That's all they need to say. They don't need to start referring me anywhere. They don't need to give up their own, habits, whatever they do. They just need to say, well done you for noticing something that's clearly important to you. Because that's always got to be good, hasn't it? Surely.
Absolutely.
And check out some of the resources now that are available for, middle lane, grey area drinkers. That's it. That's all that's needed.
And
I wish
anybody
I
that,
could raise more awareness,
yep, I'm right with you. Because anybody that says, I think I am, it isn't about whether
Exactly.
somebody else thinks they are. It's like
It's
that
important.
voice comes from a place of, I don't think this is working for me. And that's what's
Exactly.
important. I
It's a
know
cry
my
for
life
help,
can be
really, isn't
better.
it? It's a cry for
Yeah,
help. That's what I was really doing. I was crying
yeah.
out for some help and I didn't get it for
No,
years.
no. And I admire it because when I look back, I would never have wanted to have said, oh, I think I'm drinking too much, or I
Mm,
think this is a problem. And
mm.
because it didn't look like what it had looked like in my past, like you say, I thought that I was a sociable drinker. I joke about it because I remember saying on a stage once, yes, I was just a sociable drinker, a bottle of wine at home on my own. because I'd be chatting to my friends on the phone, but I knew it wasn't working for me because I knew I woke up every day tired.
Yeah.
So you have created this whole incredible world for people if they feel that, oh, that would benefit me. Tell me what's in this world. Like, it feels like a sweetie shop, which is probably not the best example. Spa. It sounds like a spa.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I run the Sober Club, which is a membership community. It's not expensive. It's everything in there is around well-being, and there's an online course, and there's just tons and tons of great stuff. So, and it has everything in there. There's meditations, there's nutrition, there's experts, there's absolutely everything you'd ever need. So that's just the soberclub.com. That's the membership group. My podcast is free. That goes out pretty much it does go out every week. Alcohol Free Life. I have some amazing guests and experts on there. I'm very proud of that work because I'm lucky, I get to interview amazing people. And then I offer one-to-one coaching. If anybody wants to dig a bit deeper, I'm also trained in EFT and matrix reimprinting. I don't know if you're aware of that, and family
oh,
constellations, which I run
oh,
family constellations days as well, because that's the
love
second most important thing I've ever done after quitting alcohol is family constellations.
family constellation is life
Totally
changing.
amazing. It is.
I just want to go back. I know you've got a whole load of things that you do.
No, that's it, really.
EFT, I
Yeah,
get emotional freedom technique. That's the
yeah,
tapping technique, isn't it?
yeah.
And I'm explaining this for people that are listening. What was the middle thing? There's something
It's called
matrix.
matrix reimprinting. It's incredible. It kind of follows on from EFT, but it's about sort of reprogramming your unconscious mind and your limiting beliefs. It's incredibly powerful. I love using that in my one-to-one coaching. It links very nicely with family constellations, but family constellations is better done in a group. I can work one-to-one, but it's better with a group. So I run family constellations events in Hertfordshire and occasionally in York. So I'll let you know when I do the next one. Yeah, I'll let you know. So and then the only other thing is that I run retreats occasionally. I'm doing a retreat in collaboration with Homefield Grange Spa in October, which is like your self-care, detox, self-care, everything, all the techniques all thrown in. And then I train people to be holistic sober coaches. So it's quite a lot going on, but it all comes back to the same purpose, really.
And for people to come on your retreats, I think a question someone might ask is, do I have to already be sober or not drinking to come on it? Is there a prerequisite or is there an expectation whilst they're there?
No, there isn't that expectation with anything. You can come to anything that I run, anything that I offer. You can come and you can still be drinking. Obviously, you're not going to be drinking while you're there, clearly. But yeah, absolutely. I sometimes do retreat days as well, vision board workshops, things like that. And anything you come to, I'm very open to people who are just slightly sober curious. I was like that for years. I wish there'd been something that I could have rocked up to that would have just helped me realize, that this is the best decision. So yeah, anyone can rock up.
And I will put your website on the screen and in the description. Is there anything that any of us can do that can support this incredible purpose for you and with you?
Well, I suppose just telling people about the Sober Club, if you encounter anyone, would be amazing. Because it's very low cost, it's very accessible, it's completely non-judgmental. Yeah. I work really hard to make sure that our private group I'm in it like all the time, so nothing gets past me. It's there are no sort of, sometimes you join groups and they feel a bit uncomfortable and there's a tremendous number of people and it all feels a little bit leery. Mine's very small and very supportive and completely non-judgmental, and it really is as though we're cheerleaders for each other. So yeah, I suppose just sharing that the Sober Club exists would be great. And if you
absolutely
know anybody who's interested in doing holistic coach training, then send them my way.
I've got so many people development friends and connections. I absolutely will do. So in closing then, what one bit of wisdom tip or some wisdom that you would wrap this, I was going to say session, this conversation up with?
I think it is that one, that question to yourself, are you willing to be open, if you like, to living your best life? It's really that question. Yeah. Are you already absolutely living your best life? If you are, then great, knock yourself out. If you're not, then just ask yourself that question. Could my life be better physically and emotionally without alcohol? Or maybe it's something else for you. Maybe it's, maybe it is heroin or cocaine or whatever. It may be whatever. But ask yourself, truthfully, could my life be better physically and emotionally? And if the answer is yes, then you owe it to yourself to give this a proper go. Get the support you need, get the help you need. And this could be the turning point. One of my clients said to me, I literally feel like I've been reborn and had a new chance at life. And she's like 57. And that's how it feels. That's how it feels. It really does. It really feels as though, I mentioned earlier that before it all ended, before I quit, I was terrified of getting older. I really was. I was not comfortable with getting older. And, I'd look in the mirror, I'd absolutely hate myself. I hate the way I looked. I hate the way I felt. I hate being bloated and I just had this vision of everything getting worse and nothing getting better. How could it? Everything was just going to go downhill. I racked my brains for the answer. I'd be like, well, maybe I'll go and do a juice detox retreat, or maybe I'll go to do a boot camp, or I really need to. I'll get a personal trainer. I'd go round the houses with all these amazing things, and occasionally a tiny little voice would go, "We could quit alcohol," but I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do it, so I carried on being miserable. And it's only when I quit alcohol, everything changed. I am no longer afraid of aging. Number one, I think that quitting alcohol is the best anti-aging hack ever.
Yeah.
I definitely feel younger. I don't know if I look younger, but I don't really care. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I feel younger and I like myself now. So I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm no longer afraid of aging. I'm thoroughly delighted that I get to age healthily because I'm no longer poisoning myself.
Absolutely.
And that's the key. So if any of that is going on for you, just ask yourself, could my life be better physically, emotionally without it? The answer is yes. Come and join us in the Sober Club and let it start now.
I think that it's the coolest place to be sober in. I think that it's such a movement that you are creating, that people are safe to explore what being life without alcohol can feel like for them. And the greatest gift that you'll ever get from it, that I hear from you, is yourself.
Exactly.
What greater gift to give yourself than
Exactly.
yourself. And I might call this podcast, "Are you open to living your best life?" or words
nice.
to that effect, because I think the message I've got all the way through this is falling back in love with yourself, or falling in love with yourself.
Yeah,
It's just wonderful. I can't thank you enough, Janey, for this conversation. And I will definitely be recommending both visitors to the Sober Club and people to become mentors. But for now, thank you so much.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.